Hello everyone, Danasa here with ActionVFX. So, the ActionVFX crowd collections have been released. These collections contain high quality footage of multiple real-life people that are ready to be used for your compositing. They are shot in multiple angles and have shirt colors that can be customized in post. So it is perfect for creating digital crowds for your projects. There are two assets collections, sports and concerts, and you can purchase them now on actionvfx.com. So, in this tutorial, I will be using the sports crowd collections to fill in this football stadium with people. We will be focusing on how to turn these individual asset clips into crowd of people. You can do it manually, but for this tutorial, I'm going to use Trapcode Particular. And then I am going to show you how to change the shirt colors of the clips so we can get more variations on our crowd. And then I will also show you After Effects pre-render feature to help you speed up your workflow. Just to be organized, we will be creating two After Effects projects in this tutorial. One is for the main composition and the other just for creating the crowds. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so here we have our main composition. We have our plates, and here we have our green screen foreground, and then we have our backgrounds, the grass field and the stadium. So what I want to do is to set up this plate for our crowd by keying and tracking them. This part is just going to be a very quick review because I know you guys clicked this video to see the crowds. So what I did here was I pre-comped this plate, and then I would do the green screen inside this pre-comp. That way I can use multiple layers of keyings to help me get the best result. So now we're back to our main composition. Now what I want to do is to track the plate. And here I have the plates already tracked, and we also have all the layers being pre-comped just to get things more organized. Here we have two nulls for our stadium, and then the other one is for our grass. And for our grass, I use mockup corner pin tracking to track it. And then I duplicated the layer to extend it. Okay, now that this is set up, what we want to do is to fill up this stadium seats with our crowd. It's gonna be a bit far away, but we'll try our best to make the crowd visible. So we don't have our crowd here yet. What you can do is to create either a separate composition within this project or a separate project entirely. It really doesn't matter. Basically, the plan is to create the crowds on their own, render them out, and then bring the renders here. That way everything is more organized and neat. Also, we don't have to worry about our machine slowing down for having too many stuff on our comp. So let's start creating the crowd. Okay, so here we are in a new project. So what we are going to do in this project is to just generate our crowds and then render them out and bring them to the main project again. So here we have our 10 different variations of crowd, all standing, looking straight. My plan is of course to use Trapcode Particular to generate particles, and then each of these particles will be replaced by the crowds. So let's begin. Create a new composition, name it audience main, 1280 by 720, because the crowd will be far away in the main composition, so we don't need to be super HD, and set it to 24 frames per second, just like the main comp. Set the frame duration to 2000, which I will explain later why 2000, and hit OK. Then create a new solid for our particular. And now we have this simulation of tons of particles emitting from a point. So let's change that. So change our emitter to box. Now we see our particle is emitting from a box shape, no longer a point, which is great. Then we want to stop the particle from moving around, so zero out all the velocity. And now we have our particles appearing and frozen in place. Perfect. So then go to life and set the lifetime to 1000 seconds. This way the particle will have a long life and not die out after they spawn. But still, we have the particles keep spawning forever. So what we want is just to spawn the particles in the first frame and then stop. So we're gonna go to particles per second and get something like 5000 for now. Add keyframe and then press page down to go one frame forward, and then set the particles to 0. So now we have Particular spawning thousands of particles and then stop. But wait, there's nothing here. That's because we set the keyframes too early and did not give enough time for Particular to actually do the spawning. So let's press U and just go to the keyframes we set up and move them one frame forward. So now we have Particular spawn these particles and then stop. The particles just popped in, no additional spawning, no moving around. Perfect. Next, we're gonna align these particles to the backplate. So let's bring in the stadium and let's pick one seating groups as reference, like this one. Turn off the opacity a little bit so we can see our particles, and then go to Particular, and then we're gonna start rotating. And here we see our particles being spread out like in a 3D volume, which is not wrong because that's what we told Particular to do when we changed the emitter to 3D box. But we don't want that because we just want like a one sheet of length of particles. So let's go to emitter size, change it to individual, and squash the Z scale. And now when we rotate, it's just one plane, which is perfect because now we can start fit it into the seats. I'm not going to make it fit super perfect because again, the audience will be far away in the final comp, so getting an approximate is enough. And then maybe play with the scale a little bit and reposition it to at least get the particles inside. So yeah, awesome, this is great for now, let's move on. Okay, so now what we are going to do is to replace these particle spheres with our crowd. So go to our particle here and then change the particle type to sprite. And then if we go to sprite control, we see that there is nothing assigned yet, which of course because we don't have our crowd layer set up yet. Basically how the sprite works is Particular would pick one layer or pre-comp in the composition and use that layer as the source image or video for the particle. But wait, what if we want the source to be multiple videos instead of just one clip? Like we have 10 video clips that we want to use for our sprites. For that, we will have to go to the time sampling and select split clip loop. So what split clip does is basically it will look at the layer in the composition and divide the duration of the selected layers based on the number of clips you want. And then Particular would use each of those divided sequences as the sprites. So for example, earlier I set up my composition as 2000 frames and we have 10 different crowd clips that we're going to use. So that means Particular will use all 10 clips and each of the clips are going to run for 200 frames before the animation of the clips loop. I hope that is clear, but if not, I'm sure you will get it as we go along with this tutorial. Okay, let's continue. Now we're gonna create the aforementioned source layer for our sprite. So create a new composition and name it crowds, and set the size to 350 by 350. This is because Particular would work best if the sprites are within around like 500 to 200 pixels. Set the duration to 2000 also, just like the original composition, and OK. Bring in the crowds to the new composition, and now we have our crowds. First, what we're going to do is to resize them to fit the comp. I decided to cut off the bottom part of the clip because these people will be standing behind benches and railings, so we're not going to see their foot. And now we want to start retime them. So the great thing about this crowd collection is each of these crowds have several actions, and all of these actions are timed at the exact same time on each clips. You can check out the list of expressions and timing on the website. So for this, I want to find where they are allowed cheering, which is on around frame 700. So now here you can see they are all cheering at the same time. So we want the clips to begin here and then last 200 frames, because we have 10 clips, and the composition has 2000 frames duration. So select them all and Alt open bracket to trim the beginning. So we start here and then drag all of them to the beginning, and then we're gonna go to frame 199, not 200 because our start frame is frame 0, then trim it. If our start frame is 1, we're gonna end it at frame 200, but because we're on frame 0, we end it at frame 199. Next, what we're going to do is to sequence them in order, because as I have said before, Particular would look at the duration and divide them based on the number of clips. So right click on all of them, go to Keyframe Assistant and Sequence Layer. Boom, now they are all in sequence. Now you want to make sure that your clips have the proper duration so it would get divided correctly by particular. So here you're going to make sure the first one to ends on frame 199 and then the next one to begin on frame 200, and then also this one to ends on frame 399 and the next one to begin on frame 400, basically every 200 frames and so on. Okay, so now our crowd is ready. Let's bring this composition into the main comp and disable the view. And then on particular, make sure that the particle is set to sprite and then assign our crowd's composition. Scale it up, make them a bit bigger than the benches, just so we can see their movements from afar. Now as you can see, we only have 2 different people here. That's because we still set the number of clips to 2, so we're going to change that to 10 because we have 10 different crowds. And now we have all of our crowd assets as particles. You can also change some numbers on the random seed here and it would switch around the sprite assignments and just to make it look different. So let's undo that and take our playback to around here. So we're not going to render the entire 2000 frames for this. And let's play it. Nice. Here you can see the clip ends on frame 200 as we set up, and then it would loop back to the beginning of the animation. Perfect. Now the next thing I want to do is just to add more particle. So let's zoom in here and right click on the first keyframe, edit value, and let's change it to 10,000. Awesome, so now we have even more particles. Okay, so now what I'm doing is just adjusting it a little bit, and then we are going to change the color. Okay, so now what we're going to do is to change all the people who wears blue shirt. There are dozens of ways to do this, of course, because in visual effects there's no right way to do one thing. But for this tutorial, I'm going to show you 2 ways that I found work to change the color of the shirt. So the first way is using the change to color effects. So let's drag in change to color. And then you want to select the blue color here. And now we see it's turning red. And then below it, I'm going to change the color to something along the lines of magenta red. And there you can see we still have a little bit of like a blue spill color on her hair. It won't be visible on the final shot because again, the crowd would be shrunk down. But I'm going to fix it anyway. So we can get rid of it by select, transforming to color, and play around with the hue settings. Or what I did was I just used Advanced Spill Suppression, change it to Ultra, and select the blue color from before, and then start increasing the spill range and the spill color correction. And then you're done. Except of course the jeans here also changes color because the jeans is also blue, just like the shirt. We can deal with that by just rotoscoping it, but we're gonna do that later after I show you the second way to do the color change. So the second way, we're going to use Lumetri color. So let's bring in the Lumetri color to him here. And then we're going to go to curves and look for hue versus hue. And then select the color picker and select the color of the shirt. Now as you can see, Lumetri have isolated the range of where the shirt color is located. All we have to do is just drag it up and down and look for the color we want and it would change automatically. So here, after I changed it, we still have a little bit of bluish purple color emanating from the shirt. So what we can do is to drag this other blue point down to pull more of the blue into the red. But here we see on the other side of the curves, we see the green and yellows also get dragged along with the blue. And we don't want that because we don't want to change any of the yellow or the green. So let's create a new point here and then just pull them back up. Now everything looks great, but we can still a little bit of blue spill on the motion blur. So we can bring back our advanced spill suppression again and play around with the spill range. And now it's gone. But the new problem arises, just like the jeans from the previous person, our color correction has made some changes on unwanted places such as the pockets and the pants here. So again, we're going to fix that by rotoscoping. So we're going to disable the suppression here and duplicate the layer. And then on the top one, we want to enable the suppression. So this top layer, we're going to use it to start isolating the hands, but we don't want to include the pocket because we just want to get rid of the blue spill from the hands motion blur. And now we have this. So let's go back to the other person that we color changed earlier using change to color. And we're gonna do the same thing. Duplicate the layer, but this time we're going to disable all the color correction on the top layer and start masking her jeans. So we don't have to spend too much time animating the mask. We can add color key effect on the top layer and select the color of the shirt and increase the tolerance and feather a bit, and this would help erase the shirt from the layer. So now we are just left with the jeans and we can just rotoscope it without making it too detailed. Okay, so now I have shown two ways of changing the shirt color using Lumetri and change to color effects. What we can do now is to basically just duplicate the effects to the other assets. Okay, so now this is what we have. I have changed the color of all the blue crowds. And then if we go back to our main comp, we have this. Awesome. Next, what I want to do is to add more sprite variations. I don't think 10 is enough. I'm gonna make it like 14 or 15, basically just add more variation. What we will do is duplicate some of the assets that we already used and then just change the shirt color again, flip it horizontally, and then offset the time a little bit so they move a bit different. And because I'm going to make it 15 clips and each clips will run 200 frames, that means I need to change the duration of the composition from 2000 to 3000. Okay, so this is our new crowd sprites. We have 15 of them now. So again, from 10, I duplicated 5 more and just offset the start and end times a few frames and then change the shirt color slightly. So now we have 15. So now what we want to do is to go back to the main audience composition and change this from 2000 to 3000 just like the crowd composition. And then you want to go to particular and change the number of clips from 10 to 15. Now all the sprites are represented in the particular. Perfect. Now, something that may happen to you in this stage is that your project may start to slow down a bit and you want to speed it up. So to do that, we are going to use a feature in After Effects called pre-rendering. So let's select our crowd sprites composition in the project panel and then go to Composition Pre-Render. And now we are in the render panel and you want to render it out as something with an alpha channel like QuickTime. Rename it, and then on post-render action, you want to select Import and Replace. And then on the side here, select the crowd clip composition that we are about to render. So what's going to happen is, this crowd composition is going to be replaced by its rendered out version in our project. That way, Particular has easier way to simulate the crowd and our project will be faster. So hit render. And now you can see here the render is automatically imported into our project. And in our main composition, the crowd composition is replaced by the new render, including in the particular. And now our project runs faster. The original composition is still here, so don't worry, if you want to make changes, you can do another pre-render. Okay, so now our project is faster. What we can do now is to make some final adjustments before we render. Something that I did was I would duplicate the particular layer and then I would find other settings on the background, and then on that duplicate layer I would start adjusting to it. So we have crowd for this seat group. Again, it doesn't have to fit very perfectly because we are going to adjust this later when we are compositing it. And then you want to play with the random seeds and basically render out several variations of this crowd. What I would do for this tutorial is to render out 6 different versions of this crowd, and then we're just gonna flip them around when in compositing to double the number. Okay, so now we are in the main project. What we will do is start compositing our crowds. So let's duplicate the stadium background here and then turn it into a guide layer for our crowds, and then pre-compose it. Don't forget to parent this new comp to the tracker. And then, inside the new comp, we are going to start bringing in our crowds. Here, I have 6 of them, A1, 2, 3, and B1, 2, 3. First, let's get rid of the first frame before it spawned. Scale them down to fit the seeds. And now, what we will do is to start fitting the crowd into the seeds. Use the corner pin null to slightly deform our crowd so they fit perfectly to the seeds. And because I only rendered them looking to the left for the right side of the stadium, I'm just going to flip the crowds. And then do the adjustments again. Once you start running out of crowd variations, like I mentioned, you can just duplicate what you already have and then just flip them around. Don't worry about the people spilling out because we are going to rotate the railings later. Next, let's offset the time of some of the crowd. Then, let's roto out the people that are spilling out of the railings. So let's pre-comp our crowds based on its rows to make it easier for roto. Next, what you want is to either roto the composition or create a matte layer. I'm gonna do the latter. So create a new solid and then mask the railing. And then use it as matte inverted. And then you want to do all of this to the other rows. Now we are going to start color correcting this. The plate here is a bit dark and has warm yellow temperature to it. So I'm gonna do that to all the background layers. I am using curves because to me it is my favorite color correcting tool. And then don't forget, because these stadium crowds are far away, you want to create a depth of field. So I just created an adjustment layer, add a few pixels of lens blur, then rotate it to have the blur slowly fades to the ground to simulate depth. And that's the shot. So, as icing on the cake here, I added some camera flash effects. How I did that was that I just used ActionVFX icon lens flare collection. And similar to generating the crowd, I used that lens flare as a sprite and then have the lifespan of the particle to be super short, so it just randomly blips in and blips out of the scene. And that was it for the tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, to purchase this crowd asset, you can check out ActionVFX.com. ActionVFX provides high-quality VFX assets for your VFX needs, such as fires, explosions, and many others. We also have free products that you can get right now on ActionVFX.com. Again, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section below. See you next time. Bye-bye.